What's up? We got The Flash, Season 3, Episode 3, Magenta. So this episode, this episode starts off with Barry and Julian just talking, and with Barry and Julian at work, where Barry's like, hey, he's got a date, and Julian, like, Barry, you can't leave. There's no leaving. It's from 10:30 to 7 o'clock. 10 o'clock to 7, not 6:58, not 6:59, and Barry starts saying about how, and he's like 7, so he's like, so then Barry goes on a date with Iris, because remember, he and Iris are kind of dating at this point, because the last time he and Iris dated, so Barry erased 2 of his and Iris kisses from the timeline. First off, he deleted the first Iris kisses, remember, when he went back in time to save her from Tally, and then the second time when he created Flashpoint. So the last episode, they finally had their kiss, and are officially dating. But then we see an abusive foster home. We meet Frankie Kane, so he's like, do what you're, talk when you're supposed to, Frankie, and she's like, and then Frankie starts saying, sorry, John, Frankie's gone, and hits him with a lamppost. So then they get an alert about a portal being open, and that portal is basically Harry, and they're like, Harry, he's like, Harry, he's like, Alan, and he's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I got a problem. And then we see a speedster, which is revealed to be Jessie. Yeah, Jessie finally got her speed, and he's like, with that, and Wally's just like, wait a minute, Jessie, you're a speedster? And she's like, yeah, pretty cool, right? He's like, yeah, pretty cool, right? So, yeah, that kind of is pretty cool, Jessie. But yeah, this basically kind of starts Wally into, oh, Jessie got her speed, why didn't I? Basically, that's basically Wally's whole thing, is that he's like, Jessie got her speed, why didn't I? And it's just like, so Joe's like, yeah, Wally, it's the first, you weren't there when the first particle accelerator went on. It basically threw a roof through town, making a bunch of bad people get making powers. Some good people, some bad people. So you should realize that you not having powers is kind of a good thing, because, so they got Frankie Kane, and she's basically doesn't remember what happened, but Julian starts to suspect her, and suspect her, saying, maybe this and Clarice, maybe her and Clarice have the same making gene, have something to do with each other. So Julian goes down there, and he starts yelling at her, saying how she's the reason why her father's in the hospital, and that awakens the alternate personality. She's like, I didn't want to hurt him, I'm gonna hurt you too. And Joe's just saying, Frankie, don't, but not doing anything. He's just standing there, like, saying, Frankie, don't, but it's just like, Joe, do something. Like, you're just standing there. Like, this is what I don't like about these shows. The characters are telling the other characters to stop doing what they're doing, telling the villains or to stop doing what they're doing when they're good people, but they don't do anything themselves. So Barry stopped, and Barry's like, Frankie, and the person's like, Frankie's gone. Her name is Magenta, basically name of the episode. Yeah, and very terrible name. And he's like, yeah, Dr. Alchemy give you your powers. And she starts to turn back to Frankie Kane, but then when he mentions about how he can help her, Magenta takes back control and says, I don't need your help, why? I don't need your help from anyone. They basically say that she's a Flashpoint meta, because guess what? They're mentioning Flashpoint again for stuff that they didn't show. That's what the show does now. It says, oh, Flashpoint did this, Flashpoint did that. Like, Flashpoint did everything that's wrong with this show. Did Flashpoint mess up the show? No, it's the show's writing. Just kidding about the messing up the show. But, yeah, so they basically said they coined Flashpoint's name. So they're basically like, that's another responsibility of Flashpoint. They're like, what's Flashpoint? And he's like, what's Flashpoint? And he's like, Flashpoint is the alternate timeline that Barry created when he went back to save his mom. That they coined. But, no, you didn't. Reverse Flash coined it. You're wrong. You guys didn't coin it. But Reverse Flash did. But you guys don't know that. So, again, cough, cough. Yeah. And yeah, so basically Harry's also doing with his own thing where Jesse, where he doesn't want Jesse to, so he's like, hey guys, I came, yeah, there's also a speed lab. It's basically Starlab. When Barry went back in time and saved his mom and changed everything, he basically gave Starlab a new room that they can show. And yeah, and only they remember it because Harry and Jesse don't remember it because they're different timelines. So they only remember going back to Earth 2. They remember everything that happened during season 2, but going back to Earth 2 is the only thing they remember. Flashpoint, they don't know. Speed Lab, they don't know. The Speed Lab is the new location for the shows where metahumans can train themselves. It's basically the show's new location for when the metahumans need to train. They got the Speed Lab. When the metahumans need to talk, they got the Speed Lab. Basically, the Speed Lab is the new way for metahumans to train for upcoming threats. And yeah, even Harry says that he came to Earth 1 to have the gang talk Jesse out of being a speedster, not into it. Because he basically, and he's like, Snow, Snow, and she's like, what do you mean talking out things? I don't have any powers that you guys need to know about. He's like, Ramon, you're a meta. He's like, yeah, that's the reason why I wouldn't be the best person to talk her out of this. So yeah, so she's like, okay, I'll talk her out. But then making Jesse, so Jesse and Wally are talking, and Jesse basically reveals that her whole backstory, how she got her powers. She was walking home from a friend's house, and immediately a car came at her, but then she realized that the car started slowing down, but then she realized that she was slowing everything down around her, and her whole story makes Wally realize, if I try to do that exact same thing, maybe I'll get powers. So Wally basically tries to do that exact same thing, but Jesse saves him because, guess what, Wally is not smart. And she's like, what are you doing? He's like, get my speed, what are you doing? And she's like, get my speed, what are you doing? And she's like, to stop you from getting yourself killed. And he's like, that's the only way I'll get. And she's like, no, Wally, you're not getting powers. Yeah, Barry basically yells at Wally saying, didn't Joe talk to you? And he's like, no. And Wally makes a very good remark. He's like, it was like there can't be no other speedsters in the family. Basically a good remark. Yeah. And I got what Barry's doing. He's trying to make sure Wally doesn't get killed like Flashpoint Wally did. But he's kind of coming on too strong about it. Like, yeah, and also Wells is like, yeah, hey Jesse, you shouldn't use your powers to save, you shouldn't have used your powers. And she's like, you just don't, that's the only reason why you made me come here. Not to do tests, you came here not to get help. You just came here to get everyone here on your side to stop her from using her powers. And he's like, yeah. And she's like, well, yeah. And then Caitlyn's like, hey, instead, you could help her. And he's like, yeah. And this basically gets, yeah, well, anyway, back to the whole Magenta storyline. Magenta basically talks to Dr. Alchemy, as Cisco calls him. And yeah, so she basically wants to kill her foster father and a bunch of other people. So thanks to the talk between Barry, he's like, run, she's like, and Barry's like, and he's like, run, Jesse, run. So Jesse's like, hey, Jesse will just speed off screen and not do anything while Barry takes care of Magenta. That's basically how it went. She didn't help. She just speeded off to let Barry do this. Because guess what? As the show's My Name is Barry Allen says, Barry Allen's the only one that can do anything. Yeah. As the show says to itself, Barry Allen is the only one that can stop the threats. He even says he's the only one to, and he brought new threats to the world, and he's the only one that can stop them. Because guess what he is? He's the Flash. And I'm just like, you have a bunch of other heroes. The shows that can help you. I know it's the intro sequence to the intro sequence to the show that I'm talking about. And Barry says he's the only one. So Barry's talked to Frankie, but Frankie's talks about how her foster father basically called her weak and basically called her a terrible person. But he's like, that's the only reason why. And I'm just like, Barry, please adopt this child. She's been through too much. Please adopt this child. Because she's been through too much. Yeah. So he's in, and Caitlin's just gonna put her in a foster home in Keystone with good people. We're not looking at her again. I'm just like, Barry, why didn't you adopt this child? You're a good guy. She's a good kid. Why didn't you and Iris adopt this child? In my head, when I think of it, I have Barry adopt her because totally it's my own imagination. But in the show, yeah, and also guess what? Jesse gets a new suit, everybody. But it's not a new suit at all. It's just the trajectory suit from season 2, just with an added lightning bolt on it. Lazy. That was the most laziest thing the show could have ever done. Lazy. It's basically just like, oh, Jesse, here's your new suit. But it's not really a new suit. It's basically just the trajectory suit from last season that the villain trajectory used. But now it's called the hero suit because guess what, Jesse? It's not, yeah. I don't like this episode. I just have a lot of problems with Jesse, with the Jesse suit. They basically just took the season 2 suit that Eliza Harmon wore and put a flash lightning bolt on. That's all they did. And now they're like, oh, Jesse, that's your suit now. Guess what? Your new name is Jesse Quick. I don't know. Is that her name in the comics? I don't think that's her name in the comics. I think she has a different name. Or is it her same name? I have no idea. But yeah. So then Barry and Iris go on a final day. Yeah. So then at the end of the episode, we see them interviewing footage from Edward Claris's death, and he's like, alchemy. And he's like, alchemy. He's like, alchemy. Have you ever heard that name, Alan? And he's like, no. And he's like, maybe it's a ghost man. And he's like, is this another part of the Flashpoint timeline too? And I'm just like, I'm done. I'm just like, we didn't get to see the Flashpoint timeline. Stop mentioning things about the Flashpoint timeline because we didn't get to see it. I understand why a bunch of people have a problem with this season, the whole Flashpoint storyline, because they're like, was this part of the Flashpoint timeline too? Well, we didn't get to see that. They mentioned Frankie Kane's backstory about how she got memories from Flashpoint, but guess what? The show decided to end Flashpoint after one episode. I'm not saying I have a problem with this episode. I don't. It's a great episode. But I'm just saying there's a lot of things like Flashpoint's whole problem. Jesse just getting a reskin of the trajectory suit. That's all my problem. But anyway, I'll see you next time for more of The Flash.